Happy Chanukah and good morning. My name is Rabbi Wyne, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Life is Great, where every Sunday morning we explore another universal value derived from Judaism to see how your life can be the best it can be. This morning we want to talk about one of the most important and significant events in human history, the Jewish holiday of Chanukah. Now, it's true, to some people, they just view Chanukah as the Jewish version of Christmas. It is not the Jewish version of Christmas. And there are some people that relate to Chanukah as the way they relate to most Jewish holidays. There was a war, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. It's also very different than that as well. As a matter of fact, Chanukah, as I said, is one of the most significant events that occurred in human history. In a few moments, we're going to explore what is the true meaning of Chanukah and why is it significant to you, whether you are Jewish or not. But before we do that, let's go to our favorite coffee bean and ask some of the people on the street if they knew about Chanukah and if they think it is significant to them. Have you ever heard of the Jewish holiday of Chanukah?
Yes, I have.
Do you know what it's about?
It's about celebration of principles and beliefs of the Jewish people and people that believe in Hanukkah. And there's a week-long celebration. It's just before Christmas, and Christmas, right after Christmas, is the African holiday of Kwanzaa. So it's respecting the people's beliefs and allowing respect to the ancestors. We all have the common ancestor, so we all have our different beliefs, and it needs to be respected.
The Jewish people you know who celebrated Hanukkah, do you feel that they were celebrating it as a Jewish Christmas?
I don't believe they were celebrating it as a Jewish Christmas more than they were about the values, because they really were really into it. It's very special and sacred, as Christmas is, and the Christmas beliefs of Christ's birthday, and then Kwanzaa. So I don't think it was Christmas, because they were buying Christmas presents as well. But they did give some gifts, but they were moderate gifts in recognition of the principles. So you have to tie it in. And then they really took it sacredly, and the dinner was the culmination of it all.
Okay. You've heard of the holiday, the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you know, what is Hanukkah to you?
Celebration.
Does it have any relevance to you?
No. I know it's a Jewish holiday.
Jewish holiday. Would it surprise you if I told you the reason you have a Bible is directly related to the holiday of Hanukkah?
Maybe.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That's it. Welcome back. All right. What is Hanukkah and why is it important to you? That's what we really have to understand here. Now, the holiday of Hanukkah, the origins of it, really go back very far. As a matter of fact, it goes back to Alexander the Great. Alexander was the man, of course, he basically conquered and then ruled the world. In the years 325 before the Common Era, when Alexander rides into Jerusalem. And at that time, the Talmud actually tells us the exact story of what happened. Alexander was this massive man. He rode on a massive horse and had a big hat. He rides his army into Jerusalem, and out comes a very elderly person by the name of Shimon HaTzadik, Simon the Righteous. And he was the spiritual leader of the Jewish people. Well, remarkably enough, Alexander, when he rides into Jerusalem, he gets off of his horse, bows down to this old Jewish man, this old leader. And the people said, Alexander, what in the world are you doing? And Alexander said, you know, every night before I go to battle, a vision comes to me, a face of an old man, and it happens to be the face of this man. So evidently there was some kind of divine intervention when Alexander rolled into Jerusalem. But remember, when Alexander would ride into any other city, he rode in order to conquer and destroy and dominate that society. However, he was very impressed with the Jewish people at that time. And even though that Alexander's father, Philip from Macedonia, was kind of a hick from the north, he raised his child to appreciate the teachings of those Greek philosophers, of Socrates and others. And so therefore Alexander, he wasn't just trying to physically dominate the world, conquer the world, but he was trying to civilize the world. So when he met the Jewish people, he stopped and said, wait, these are people who also have a thirst for learning and a quest for what they view as moral and an idea of spirituality and an appreciation for beauty. So because of that, and because of the relationship that developed between Simon the Righteous and Alexander the Great, an accommodation was made. And basically, the Jewish people agreed to name every firstborn male after Alexander, thereby bringing a very Greek name into the annals, into the society of Jewish society. And Alexander the Great basically left the Jewish people alone and let them worship the way they wanted to worship. That is the first major significant point that is relevant for all of us in today's day and age. One might think that the most important thing is political dominance. But no, to the Jewish people, we always felt that really the main goal in life was to serve the Almighty. And who happens to be the top name on the letterhead, that's not so important. If a person has the ability to live a moral, pleasurable, enlightening, and elevating existence, that is what is most important. And we know that in life, successful people and successful societies, they prioritize. Alexander the Great, he had a priority. He wanted to civilize the world according to his version of morality. His version of morality is very different than the Jewish version of morality. But as long as he left the Jewish people alone, Simon the Righteous led the Jewish people and arranged that there could be an accommodation and people could live in peace. The next part of the saga actually happens the year 323 before the Common Era. That's when Alexander the Great dies. When he dies, he actually is two major generals, one in the north, one in the south. They divide the Greek Empire between the northern Syrian Greeks and the southern Egyptian Greeks. The Jewish people are kind of caught exactly in the middle. Now, we favor the Egyptian Greeks and we kind of stay with them a little bit. The leader of the Egyptian Greeks, he does something remarkable, something that changed the course of humanity for forever. He took 70 sages, 70 Jewish sages, put them in individual prison cells and said, translate the Torah, translate the Bible from the Hebrew into the Greek. Now, there was a miracle that occurred, and all these 70 sages, they arranged to do the same adjustments, changes in the translation from the Hebrew to the Greek. That book was called the Septuagint. If you've ever picked up a Christian Bible, you have to know that you are reading a translation of a Septuagint. Now, as I mentioned, things when they go through a translation, they get changed up a little bit. And that's why our Hebrew Bible, our Hebrew Torah, even the English translation will be different than a Christian Bible. How different will it be? Well, it's different enough to create a new religion. That's how different it is. Because remember, every time you go from one translation to the next, you change things. Hebrew is a difficult language. It's a terse language. There's about 26,000 words in the Hebrew language. I believe there's around 600,000 words in the English language, just to give you an idea. So there's a lot of nuances that are there, and there's changes. You add a letter in the front part of a word or throw a letter in the middle of a word, and all of a sudden the whole word is changed. So imagine what happens to a document that goes from the Hebrew to the Greek to the Latin, then to the German, English, whatnot. It gets changed as you go about. So the reason this is so significant is because once the Jewish people could now read their Torah in the Greek language, so that accelerated the Jewish assimilation into Greek society. And again, Alexander the Great, initially when he conquered the world, he wasn't trying to politically dominate, wasn't only trying to politically dominate, he was trying to culturally, spiritually dominate the world. So now that you have the Jewish people, they can read their Torah in the Greek, they have Greek names, they are beginning to assimilate and assimilate fast into Greek society. That is going to lead us up to the true miracle of Chanukah and the eventual war that will change all of human history. Don't go away. My name is Rabbi Wyne. We'll be back with more of the Chanukah story in just a moment.
My name is James Levy. I've been involved with Rabbi Wyne since 1999. Nobody has had a greater impact in my life than my father, other than Rabbi Wyne. And I would encourage you to get to know him. I would encourage you to let him teach you some of the values that he represents. I would encourage you to support this show. You can go to rabbishow.com. But more importantly, I would encourage you to come to Young Israel. Come here on a Saturday. Come at 10:30. You can hear the Torah read. It's good for your soul. It's immediately followed by the Rabbi's Drasha. It'll be inspirational. Then there's a class, and then there's a Kiddush. I've been doing that for more than 10 years. I'd encourage you to come, say hello to me, say hello to the rabbi. Well, I would encourage you guys to go to the rabbishow.com and to make a donation to support the great work that the rabbi's doing. I am a testimony to the fact that if you give, you will get. I started donating aggressively, and I was blessed 100-fold. I would love to share my story. Come to Young Israel, 10:30. I'll shake your hand. You'll meet the rabbi. It'll be great.
Welcome back. Now let's get straight to the miracle of Hanukkah. Again, the setup is Alexander the Great. He marches his army into the land of Israel. He conquers it. Ptolemy then translates the Torah into the Greek language, and the Jewish people are assimilating fast. So now if you go into the middle of the 2nd century before the Common Era, the leader of the Greek Empire is Antiochus IV. And the fact that there were a lot of Jews that were assimilating and literally trying to become more Greek than the Greeks themselves, the fact that that was happening, and it was happening because there were certain aspects of the Greek culture that were extremely attractive to the Jewish people. They honored their philosophers in the same way that we honor our Torah scholars. They appreciated knowledge in the same way that we are deeply dedicated to spreading values and understanding what life is about. But they were also incredibly immoral. And the lowest part of a person's vice, whatever vice you would have, somehow they created a god that was even worse than that vice. Their idea of pantheism was, listen, if a person wanted to behave sexually in a sexually immoral way, then they would create a god who is more immoral than you could ever be. And then that would justify the way you wanted to be. If you wanted to be angry, then there was a god who was so incredibly angry, you know what? You can never be as angry as that god. So it justified your behavior. So in that respect, the Greek culture was extremely attractive. But there was another group of Jews, and they said, no, there's one God, there's one set of truth, and that truth is identified for us in the Torah. Well, we're now up to the point, the city is known as Modi'in. Modi'in is in a suburb of Jerusalem. And at this point, Antiochus, the leader of the Greek Empire, he had forbade the Jewish people to circumcise their boys. He forbade them to celebrate the Sabbath. He forbade them to publicly learn Torah, and he forbade them to set the Jewish calendar, which was a requisite to follow any Jewish holidays. So they gathered the people together in a square, set up an idol, and commanded the Jews to sacrifice a pig to that idol. When one person said, oh, I'll sacrifice that pig. So there was a man, one of the leaders of the Jewish people, Matisyahu, the priest, and he went up and he stabbed that person who was about to sacrifice the pig to the idol, and then killed the Greek guard who was there. Well, that started a war. Matisyahu had 5 sons, and the 3rd son was incredibly a talented person. His name was Yehuda Maccabee. He was called a Maccabee. Maccabee is a word that means the hammer. And he organized a guerrilla army, an army of about 14,000 people. Who would have known that these 14,000 people would have gone to war and actually eventually defeated a well-trained Greek army of over 40,000 people? This guerrilla warfare began in the year 167 BCE. And for the first 3 years, many people were killed. And it was a brutal war. And the Jewish people did not even know 100% if they were doing the right thing, because remember, many years prior to this, they came to an accommodation with the Greeks. And yes, there were many Jews that were falling away to Greek society and Greek culture, but there were many Jews that were holding on to Jewish values in a strong way. Well, in the year 164 BCE, there was a miracle that occurred, and this small guerrilla army led by Judah Maccabee, Yehuda, they went into the temple in Jerusalem, and in the temple it was already desecrated by the Greeks. A statue of Zeus was put up, and there was a gymnasium that was put right next door to the temple as a way to say, we honor the body more than we honor the soul. And this small army captured Jerusalem, cleansed and sanctified the temple, and they lit the menorah, they lit the 7-pronged candelabra that signified God's love and signified God's ability to bring light into this world. Now, they only found one cruse of oil, enough to last for one day, and it would take another 8 days before more holy oil could be produced. They lit that cruse of oil, and when that cruse of oil, when a miracle occurred and it lasted for 8 days, then that told the Maccabees that they're literally putting their lives on the line for the sake of their religion, for their ability to not be subject to the imposition of anyone else when it comes to religious beliefs, that was the right thing to do. So it was a kiss from the Almighty, so to speak, because they didn't know. Should we fight? Should we be willing to die for our ability to practice our religion? They didn't know. But ultimately, it is a question that every one of us, every one of you must decide. Would you be willing to die for the Almighty? Would you be willing to die for your right to practice the religion that you love and that you know is true? So alas, this miracle that lasted one cruse of oil that burned for 8 days, it was a miracle, and that would be the basis of our Chanukah celebration. Again, realizing the Almighty gave us a kiss when we were willing to dedicate ourselves to our religion and dedicate ourselves to living in a way that the Almighty wants us to live. It's a question we all have to ask ourselves. How dedicated are we? And are we willing to die for our beliefs? Now again, this war would continue on for another 22 years. In total, it would be a 25-year struggle until finally the Maccabees would succeed and the people from the house of Hashmonai would again gain not only spiritual lead of the Jewish people, but political leadership as well. Don't go away. My name is Rabbi Yitz Wyne. We're going to come back with a special version of the Rabbi's Inbox. I'm going to explain to you all the customs about how to celebrate Hanukkah and the significance behind each custom. We'll talk about lighting the menorah, we'll talk about eating latkes, spinning a dreidel, a few other things as well. Do you know someone who needs a little more happiness in their life? Maybe it's you who needs more happiness in your life. Yes, you've seen the Life is Great TV show, you perhaps have heard the Rabbi show, but now it's time to get Life is Great, revealing the 7 secrets to a more joyful you. This book was something tangible that you can give your friends and family, where they can keep by their bedside, take it on vacation, leaf through it page at a time or chunk of pages at a time, and each time they will learn another secret, another tool that they can use in order to get the absolute most out of life. What better present can you give your friends and family than the wisdom to live a better life? Hey, happy Hanukkah! I'm Rabbi Yitz Wyne, and welcome back to Life is Great. So right now I'd like to explain to you the major customs that we perform to celebrate the holiday of Hanukkah. The first one that you might be very aware of is lighting of the Hanukkah menorah. Now there are many people that light candles, but the best way to have a menorah is one made of olive oil. If you don't have olive oil, then you can use canola oil, and if not that, then of course you can use candles. The reason we light olive oil preferably is because the miracle of Hanukkah happened with oil, all right? Now, because the essence of lighting a menorah is, in other words, the reason we light the menorah, is something called Pirsumi Nisa, which means to publicize the miracle. In other words, what's going to happen is tonight you'll walk out and you'll see a menorah. When you see the menorah, you'll say to yourself, aha, there must have been a miracle that happened at this time, in this season, about 2,000, 200 years ago. That's exactly what happens. When we light one candle on the first night, 2 candles on the second night, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 8 nights, the 8 nights of Hanukkah. And there is a discussion in the Talmud, our tradition, our oral tradition that was handed down to us from God to Moses in terms of what is the best way a person should conduct themselves. Should they always be striving for more and more and more in their life? Or should they recognize the ultimate in holiness and then get used to it, internalize it, come closer and come closer? There is value to both approaches to life. But the rabbis actually tell us that when it comes to Hanukkah, on the first night you want to remember there was a miracle that happened, and God loves me, and He helps me out in my life. And the next night, you want to think about it more. And the next night, you want to be even more dedicated. And the next night, you want to be more dedicated. And therefore, we light 1 on the first night, 2 on the second, 3 on the night, 4 on the next one, 5 on the next night, which happens to be tonight. All right, there's another candle, there's another light in the middle here. This one is called the shamish. Some people call it the servant candle. Now the reason, as I explained, for the Chanukah is to look at the light and remember the miracles. So therefore, in Jewish law, we are not allowed to make use of these lights for any other form. But what would happen, especially on the 8th night, when you have 8 lights burning and you walk in the room and you see the light and you look at a picture or you read a book? Well, what we do is we have an extra light that we use in order to light the other lights. And we say it's that extra light that is providing the illumination for us to do whatever else we want to do. The other important thing to remember before we light the Hanukkah menorah is the placement of the menorah. Now, the essence of the menorah, again, is to publicize the miracle. So if you are able to, you should light the menorah outside. And if you go out to Jerusalem, you will notice that almost everybody lights their menorahs outside. Some people even have glass cases. They look like fish tanks. And they put their menorah inside of a fish tank and they will light their menorah in that. Others, what they'll do is they'll put their menorahs in front of a window. And by putting it in front of a window and lighting it at the earliest time possible, which is after sunset, in the first part of the evening, when there are more people walking around and more people to see the menorah, that is the preferable way to do it. When you light the menorahs, we're going to set up, of course, the first night, this was the first candle, the next, and the next. But when we light it, we light the present day candle first. So I'm going to light going from my left towards my right. This is how it'll do. I will say 2 blessings, and then I will show you how to light the menorah. The blessings are recited in the proper way. I will recite the Hebrew, but I encourage you to recite a blessing in the language which you are most comfortable with. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav, v'tzivanu l'adlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asa nisim la'avoseinu, bayomim ha'em bazman hazeh.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and has commanded us to kindle the Chanukah light. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has wrought miracles for our forefathers in those days at this season. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this season.
And this is the lighting of the Hanukkah menorah. Then there is a custom to spend 1/2 hour looking at the lights, discussing about the miracles every single evening, 1/2 hour. The Talmud tells us that someone who is careful to look at the menorahs, to light the menorah at the right time, will merit to have Torah scholars as sons. It will aid you in your memory and increase your ability to have a greater relationship with the Almighty in your life.
Go to therabbishow.com today. Make a donation, and Rabbi Wyne will send you a free Jewish calendar for the new year, along with his personal blessings. All donations are tax deductible and help us share positive values which make the world a better place for everyone.
Right after we completed lighting the Hanukkah menorah, there's a custom to read the following paragraph. It says, it explains what we do. And again, this is an important idea for everybody. The Almighty does not want us to be zombies. We have to know why we do, what we do, how we do, and understand the meaning and relevance of what we do. Otherwise, there is no way that our customs and traditions will be precious enough to our children, our grandchildren, or even ourselves, all right? And this is what we say in the ensuing time following we light the menorah And it says, "These are the lights we kindle upon the miracles, the wonders, the salvations, and the battles which you performed for our forefathers in those days at this season through your holy priests. During all 8 days of Hanukkah, these lights are sacred. We are not permitted to make ordinary use of them, but to look at them in order to express thanks and praise to your great name for your miracles, your wonders, and your salvations." And again, it is a focus on the two miracles that happened to the Jewish people at this season and those times. One was the oil, the miracle of the oil. The second is the fact that a small Jewish army, a guerrilla army, could fight, battle, and win over a very powerful Greek army. Hi, do you like the holiday of Hanukkah?
Yes,
Why do you like it so much?
because it's fun and I can be with my family.
Now, do you eat lots of latkes and donuts?
Yes,
Who makes the best latkes?
my mom.
Nice. And what about a dreidel? Do you ever play that?
Yes,
Do you enjoy that?
yes,
Do you ever win?
sometimes.
Okay, good, excellent. And do you light the menorah
Yeah,
every night?
yeah, my own menorah.
How many menorahs do you have in your house?
3.
Nice.
Join Rabbi Wyne and friends on December 12th, 2013 at 7 p.m. at Palms Place in the 57th floor penthouse, when Dee and Dr. Adam Millman host the 5th annual year-end cocktail party benefiting Young Israel Aish Las Vegas. Call 702-360-8909 to RSVP today, or go to www.youngisraelishlv.com.
Want more wine? Turn your radio to AM 720 KDWN or go online to therabbishow.com to hear The Rabbi Show starting right after the news at 9 a.m.
I am Yitz Wyne, the rabbi of Young Israel Aish of Las Vegas, a wonderful, welcoming community that I would like to introduce you to today. One of the things that's really unique about an Orthodox synagogue, and I think Young Israel Aish in particular, is that not only do I know everybody's name, I know your dog's name. It's really about a personal relationship, about everyone should have a relationship with a rabbi. Judaism teaches us that every person needs a rabbi, you need a friend, and you need a student to really get the fulfillment of wisdom, to really understand what life is about. I'm always explaining the concepts in the Torah, in the Bible, explaining Jewish values and challenging people to understand what those values are. All the wealth God gives me is really in order that I should benefit others. Spreading Jewish values, positive universal values. Those are the things that have led us to have a YouTube channel that has more than 250,000 views on it. It's the weekly radio show, The Rabbi Show, with its own unique website.